Limits of the Flesh, Chapter 73, Fantasy Fiction by Azazyel. Medusa and I quickly moved the box from the hallways into one of the many empty side rooms, and after opening the box there was a metal suitcase within the box that matched the same suitcase that held the unicorn horn I got when I first landed on this world. Opening up the suitcase, was another note prominently placed over a pinwheel that made my whole form shiver at the malevolence rolling off it, and even Medusa shook as the essence and malefic energies coming from it eclipsed the sleeping form of Balor that Arcuied and I smothered to death before and added its divine remains to make Medusa. Taking the note with somewhat shaking hands, I read the note and my lips twitched at the bullshit within. Yo dude, this isn't your Jake sponsor. I am the Jake that got sent to one of the JJK alternate universes to see what nonsense was going on there. Anyway, I got sent to a modern fantasy cultivation version of Jujutsu Kaisen, with the Jujutsu sorcerers being utterly on a different level from the show and manga. Either way, your sponsor Jake helped me out in a tight spot with dealing with my Sukuna, who began eating other Sukuna from other timelines to become stronger. Here is a part of my Mahagora that's weakness adaptation and regeneration was annoying to deal with, once you integrate it into your body. Destroy the fucking sample. Don't study it and waste time. I blinked and realized that ever so slowly thorns were growing on the wood-like flesh that made up the pinwheel. So I quickly grabbed the pinwheel and began scanning it and taking on its abilities. Mahagora, at least this one was a fucking monster beyond comprehension, perfect biological adaptation, and regeneration that would slowly become immune to things that brought physical, magical, and even spiritual harm to the host of this form of biology. Granted, in the short term it was weaker than the normal Mahagora's adaptation, which I believed was quickly gaining immunity to the source of harm, but those adaptations would be forgotten between summons or just lost over time. No, these adaptations were slow. But permanent. Like my unicorn bloodline, such a powerful bloodline beyond my devil and other adaptations from samples had an effect on my physical form as the power and effects changed my form to reflect how much of the DNA from Mahagora's mostly spiritual form became my own. My hair remained the same holy blonde with green streaks through it due to my unicorn bloodline, but maybe it was because of my taking the DNA from Mahagora's will on his back which held the power of his biological adaptation. But now I had a literal glowing little halo with spikes floating above my head that made me gap at. Dear gods. The angels are going to fucking flip when they see Mahagora's wings are also pure white as well. I said dully with my lips twitching in amusement at the thought before shrugging, as the angel side of the Abrahamic faction was a shadow of itself and wasn't even in my thoughts honestly. So with my new cheat integrated into my body, I will the help of Medusa with her eyes of Balor that could just barely calcify the reviving flesh of Mahagora, began the process of using the power of destruction and my unicorn bloodline to utterly destroy the sample while also stripping any life force it managed to create for itself until I made sure that literally every atom of Mahagora's flesh was annihilated under the arcing rays of the power of destruction. Good work, Medusa, I said, stretching and popping my neck as I idly wondered how Graphia and the rest were going to react at my new halo. That I actually couldn't really get rid of unless I suppressed Mahagora's bloodline within myself. Medusa shook her head but paused as she spoke quietly. Master, your creations including myself are more than happy to help. But let us continue, Mistress Rias is in need of your comfort after all. Medusa said evenly, and I nodded with a sigh as I still had Rias's comforting to before I could begin to make my next moves. For retribution, regain face and honor. And good old revenge. The Gremory clan had treated me like nothing but a beloved extension of their own family, and so I was going to make an example out of those clan heads. Let's see the devils react to me making noble devil clan heads in meat soup and then merging that soup into some orphans to remake their clans without that same millennium of arrogance. I walked with Medusa escorting me across the long hallways of the Gremory estate through the massive building, and I was right as the maids froze at the sight of my halo over my head, but they knew who I was and the flesh-changing stuff I got up to. So I made my way to Rias's room surprisingly unmolested by the help. Going into Rias's room I smiled softly as I saw Rias was the meat in a sandwich that consisted of EI holding her hands as they faced one another and Aquino lying behind Rias and spooning her. I gave Medusa a quick kiss on the cheek to send her off with a pep in her swaying waist as I then walked over, and as EI popped up to look at me, I saw Aquino also looked up from her position of being the big spoon for the still sleeping form of Rias. And I nodded but held up a finger to Aquino as she went to move for me to take her place. I just slid in behind Aquino and held her in my arms as I leaned in and silently whispered into her ear. I can bring back your mom now as was shown with Sona. Let's just take care of Rias before we do anything though. I finished and for a moment Aquino froze, but then she used her free hand to wrap around the arm that was over her waist to pull it up to her breast so I could feel her heartbeat while she pushed her back to me so we were properly spooning. Sure, I fully planned on spilling a lot of blood in the next couple of days. But for now, I was with my loved ones and that was it. I just needed to go speak with Grafia and Venelana the next day to see who would make a perfect example.